There's a particular kind of quiet that settles in a house when the kids are at school and the world is still warming up. You know the one. Not silence exactly, but a soft hum, as if the walls are breathing and time slows down enough for you to notice it. It was that kind of morning. The coffee pot gurgled faintly as it finished its cycle, and the smell of French roast filled the kitchen. I stood barefoot by the island, flipping absently through a stack of mail I'd forgotten to open the day before. Light from the window caught the edges of the stainless steel sink, bouncing across the countertop like a slow-moving ripple. That's when I heard it. A voice, low and hushed, just beyond the archway leading to the living room. "Love you." The words were soft, barely audible, like a feather falling on carpet, but they sliced clean through the air. My fingers froze mid-page. That voice belonged to my wife. Samantha. My first instinct was to smile. That instinct, I realize now, was the reflex of a man still living in the shell of a lie. I thought maybe she was talking to me. Maybe she thought I was in another room and wanted to be sweet, a whisper meant for my ears alone. So I stepped quietly toward the sound. Just a few feet. The hardwood was cool under my feet. She hadn't seen me yet. She was standing near the front window, phone pressed to her cheek, her back half turned. The way she stood, shoulders relaxed, one foot tucked behind the other, reminded me of how she used to look when we first started dating. Effortless. Comfortable. Then she said it again. "I love you too." This time, I caught the tone. A slow, syrupy warmth. The kind of "I love you" reserved for stolen moments and secrets. A version I hadn't heard in months. Not from her. Not for me. She smiled. A faint, private thing. As if she was picturing the person on the other end. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't talking to me. I ducked back around the corner, heart hammering in my chest. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. I hadn't expected to hear anything other than a random phone call. But now, my blood felt thick and slow in my veins, and the kitchen suddenly seemed too bright, too exposed. She ended the call quickly. I heard the soft chime of her phone locking, then the shuffle of her feet as she walked toward the stairs. I stood motionless until I was sure she had disappeared upstairs, then I leaned heavily against the counter. My legs had forgotten how to stand. My hand closed around the handle of my coffee mug, but I didn't take a sip. Instead, I stared out the window. The neighborhood was just beginning to wake. Sprinklers hissed to life. A jogger passed, earbuds in, oblivious to the way my world had just tilted off its axis. I didn't confront her. Not then. That's the part one keeps circling back to when I lie awake at night. I could have walked into that living room and asked her directly. Could have said, "Who were you talking to?" But I didn't. I wanted to pretend for just a few more minutes that I had misunderstood. That maybe there was a perfectly rational explanation. That I wasn't the kind of man who gets cheated on. Instead, I made breakfast like nothing had happened. Scrambled eggs. Toast. She came down 15 minutes later in her robe, hair damp from a shower. She kissed my cheek like she always did. Normal. Except it wasn't. And I couldn't shake what I'd heard. That night, I sat up after she fell asleep and stared at the ceiling for hours. I thought about the way she'd looked at me during dinner, engaged, even laughing at one of my dumb jokes. I thought about the way she slipped under the covers beside me like she always did, her hand grazing my chest before she drifted off. But my mind kept flashing back to that whisper. Those 3 words meant for someone else. I told myself I needed evidence. Proof. Something more than a fragment of overheard conversation. So I started watching her more closely. That week, I noticed small things. She was more protective of her phone, always flipping its screen down when she wasn't using it. Her notifications were silent now. She said she was working later than usual, some big presentation coming up at her marketing firm. She'd come home tired but energized, her cheeks flushed, like she was carrying a secret that thrilled her. Maybe I would have ignored it all. Maybe I would have brushed it off if I hadn't found the second phone. It happened 3 days after the call. She was in the shower. I was getting dressed for work. Her purse was on the dresser, half-zipped. I'm not proud of what I did, but I opened it. Nestled beside her wallet and lipstick was a slim, matte black phone. No case. No stickers. No personalization. It wasn't the one I bought her. That one was on the nightstand, plugged in and charging. My pulse thudded in my ears. I powered it on. No password. The first thing I saw was a thread of messages. The contact name was T. One message read, "Can't stop thinking about you." The next, "Wish I could have stayed last night." Another, older one, sent a week ago, "Your laugh kills me." You have no idea what you do to me. My hand shook. I backed out of the thread and opened the call log. They talked almost every night after I fell asleep, including the morning I heard her whisper those words. She hadn't just slipped. She hadn't misspoken. She meant them. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, zipped the bag, and left the room before the water stopped running. At work, I was useless. I stared at my computer screen for hours, but nothing made sense. I canceled meetings, told my assistant I had a migraine. I just needed to think. That night, I couldn't look at her the same. I watched her butter her toast and smile at the kids and talk about her day as if we were still in the same marriage, as if she hadn't sold the foundation out from under us. But I said nothing. I needed to know more. I started documenting everything. Time she left, what she wore, where she said she was going. I set up a basic GPS tracker on her real phone. And on a whim, I bought a voice-activated recorder and slipped it under the driver's seat of her car. It felt surreal, like I was playing detective in a life that no longer felt like mine. But the tipping point came on a Thursday. I was supposed to be out of town for a client meeting. I let her believe I was. Instead, I stayed at a hotel across town and waited. At 7:42 p.m., she left the house. Dressed nicely, but not suspiciously so. Hair down, lipstick subtle. She drove to the other side of the city, to an apartment complex I didn't recognize. She parked. She waited. 2 minutes later, a man emerged from Building C and climbed into the passenger seat. I watched from across the street, in my borrowed car, heart a jackhammer in my chest. They didn't talk much, but I saw it. The way she reached for his hand. The way she leaned her head against his shoulder. The way he kissed her, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't take pictures. I didn't record it. I just sat there, watching, until they drove off together. And in that moment, something inside me calcified. I wasn't just a man betrayed. I was a man with a decision to make. And I wasn't going to be quiet about it. Not anymore. The following morning, I sat in the silence of my office, staring at nothing, watching the sunrise filter in through the tall windows. It painted everything in gold, but there was no warmth to it. The air felt still, as if the room itself was holding its breath. On my desk sat a legal pad, its surface untouched, though my mind had been anything but idle. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Samantha and the man from Building C. His arm wrapped around her shoulders, her lips grazing his. The quiet familiarity of it, like they'd done it 100 times. It wasn't a fling. It was something real, and that made it worse. I'd always thought, if it ever happened, if she ever cheated, I'd leave. That there'd be no hesitation. But I was hesitating. Not because I forgave her. Not because I didn't feel the sting of betrayal like a blade pressed to the bone. It was because of our children. Nora, 7, with her wild imagination and toothy grin. And Ben, 4, who still called me Dada when he was tired, clinging to my leg with chubby fingers. Their world was delicate, woven from routines and bedtime stories and Saturday pancakes. I couldn't just blow it all up, but I also couldn't unsee what I'd seen. And so I decided to keep going, to gather everything. If this marriage was ending, it would end with truth laid bare. That afternoon, I retrieved the voice recorder from her car. Back in my office, behind a locked door, I played it. The audio crackled at first, then steadied. Her voice came through, soft, familiar, deceptively sweet. "You know I can't stay long," she was saying. A male voice answered, low and smooth. "Just a little while. I missed you." Then laughter. Hers. It echoed like glass cracking. "I swear, if he ever finds out," she began. My stomach turned. "I won't let him," the man replied. "You're mine when you're with me. That's all that matters." The conversation danced between intimate and logistical. Times, places, lies. She mentioned me once, calling me reliable. Said I was too busy to notice. I clenched my jaw until it ached. Then came the part one hadn't prepared for. "Have you thought about it?" the man asked. A pause. "I have," she whispered. Another pause. "And I think maybe. I just don't know how to do it without hurting the kids." I rewound that part 3 times, each time hoping I'd misheard. But no, she was talking about leaving. Not just an affair. Not just betrayal. She was considering starting over. With him. My hands trembled as I turned off the recorder. I needed a name. I needed to know who he was. So I did what I swore I wouldn't. I went through her things. Her laptop was password protected, but I knew her well enough to guess the code. Nora's birthday, reversed. It worked. I searched her downloads folder first. Then browser history. Nothing concrete. Until I found a file buried in a subfolder of PDFs. It was a rental lease. For an apartment. Building C, tenant name, Thomas H. Rayner. There it was. I didn't recognize the name. I dug deeper. Cross-checked him on social media, ran his name through LinkedIn. He was a project manager at a local architecture firm. Divorced. Mid-40s. Lives alone. Recently moved from out of state. His profile photo was professional, gray suit, serious expression. Nothing remarkable. But I recognized the face from the passenger seat of my wife's car. He looked like the kind of man who got what he wanted. That night, I sat across from Samantha at dinner, watching her move through the evening like a woman with nothing to hide. She passed the potatoes, smiled at the kids, asked about my day. I answered her in monosyllables. She didn't notice, or pretended not to. Later, after the kids were asleep and the dishwasher hummed in the background, she settled onto the couch with a book. I watched her from the doorway. She didn't look like someone planning an escape, but maybe that was the trick. I considered confronting her then, but something held me back. Instead, I took a different route. I contacted a lawyer, Elise Graham, a no-nonsense type recommended by a friend. She listened to everything without interrupting, scribbling notes, her eyes flicking up only once when I mentioned the second phone. "Have you touched it since?" she asked. "No." "Good," she said. "We'll want that untouched when the time comes." "When is that?" I asked. She leaned back in her chair. "That depends. Do you want a quiet divorce? Or something else?" I didn't answer right away. My gaze drifted to the window behind her. The sky had turned slate gray. A storm brewing. "I want her to feel it," I said finally. "I want her to see what she threw away." Elise nodded slowly. "We can work with that." Over the next few days, I kept my distance emotionally but played the part. I helped with the kids, made dinner, kissed her on the cheek before she left for work. All the while, I collected more. Every call, every message, every lie. She was cautious, but not cautious enough. The second phone became a roadmap to her betrayal. Messages filled with longing, plans for the future, pet names that made my skin crawl. And always, always, those three words. "I love you." Never for me. The tipping point came a week later. She had told me she was working late. A team dinner downtown. Something about a new campaign. I checked the GPS. She wasn't downtown. She was at his apartment. I watched her car pull into the complex from a nearby alley. I waited 10 minutes, then walked to the door of Building C. My heart beat like a war drum. I climbed the stairs. Second floor. Apartment 204. Her laugh echoed from inside. Muffled. Happy. I didn't knock. Didn't kick the door in. Instead, I slid the voice recorder from my pocket and set it near the threshold. Then I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the door, her shoes on the mat beside his. A quiet, damning still life. Then I left. I went home. I didn't sleep. Didn't blink. The next morning, I was in Elise's office at 8 o'clock sharp. "I want a file," I told her. "Do you want custody?" she asked. I hesitated. "Yes. Shared, at least. I don't want to take them from her. Just not let her walk away clean." "We'll file for that," she said. Then she leaned forward, voice low. "But if you really want to make her feel it, I have a suggestion." I listened. And when she finished explaining, I leaned back and nodded slowly. It was perfect, and just cruel enough. I'd spent weeks drowning in the shock of betrayal, in the quiet grief of losing something I thought was forever. Now it was time to act, time to shift the story, and it would start with a dinner invitation, one she'd never see coming. She smiled when I suggested it. Dinner. Just us. Somewhere nice. Samantha was sitting at the breakfast bar, swirling her coffee absent-mindedly when I floated the idea. Her hair was still damp from the shower, makeup only half done. She looked startled at first, then softened. "That sounds nice," she said. "It's been a while." She wasn't wrong. The last time we'd gone out, just the two of us, was for our anniversary in April, a dinner that now felt like a lie in hindsight. She'd toasted me with a glass of wine and told me how lucky she was. All the while, she'd already begun sleeping with him. I kept my expression neutral. This was no longer about fixing anything. It was about staging the moment I'd been building toward since the whisper, since the second phone, since every breadcrumb I'd quietly followed back to the truth. "Friday?" I asked, taking a casual sip of my own coffee. "The kids can stay at your sister's." She nodded, distracted, tapping her fingers on the ceramic. Friday's good. I'll make reservations. I watched her for a beat too long. She didn't notice. Perfect. That day, I made 2 more appointments. The first was with my accountant. Elise, my lawyer, had already warned me. Once Samantha knew what was coming, she'd come for the assets. She might not be thinking clearly now, blinded by her little fantasy life. But when the truth hit, she'd lawyer up fast. So I moved quietly, restructured some investments, created a new trust in the children's names, shifted a few holdings to a separate business account, flagged for future tuition and medical expenses. I left just enough in our joint account to keep up appearances. The second appointment was less conventional. A private room at Ostera, the most upscale restaurant in town. Elise had arranged everything. The room, the timing, even the guests. It was all going to happen there. Friday came too slowly. Samantha was unusually affectionate that morning. Guilt, perhaps, or some twisted sense of relief. Maybe she thought we were rounding a corner, that her double life could be reconciled and folded neatly into our old one, that she could keep both worlds. I kissed her on the forehead as she left for work. Tonight, I said. She smiled. Can't wait. Neither could I. That afternoon, I picked up the kids from school and dropped them at her sister's. I hugged them tighter than usual. Ben clung to me, asking if I'd be there to read his favorite bedtime story. I told him I'd read 2 the next night. Samantha was already dressed when I got home. A deep navy dress that fit her perfectly. Her hair pinned up. Lipstick just slightly darker than usual. She looked beautiful, but all I could see was the lie. You look great, I said. She blushed. So do you. We drove in silence for most of the way. I let her talk when she wanted, let her fill the space with small talk and casual observations. But beneath her words, I could feel the tremor. She was trying to keep the facade intact. I parked near the entrance. She reached for my hand, squeezed it. Inside, the hostess smiled. Mr. and Mrs. Warren, your room is ready. Samantha blinked. Room? I smiled. Figured we could use a little privacy. We followed the hostess down a quiet corridor. She opened a set of double doors to reveal the private dining space. A large mahogany table sat in the center, candles already lit, soft music playing from a corner speaker. 3 chairs on one side, 2 on the other. Samantha frowned. I thought this was just us. It is, I said, then stepped aside. A woman entered behind us. Elise Graham. And beside her, Thomas Rayner. Samantha stopped moving. Elise walked to the table and sat gracefully. Thomas hesitated, glancing at Samantha, then took a seat next to Elise. I didn't speak. Not yet. Samantha's eyes darted between them. What is this? I gestured to the chair across from Thomas. Please, sit. She didn't move. Elise is my attorney, I said. Thomas is your lover. And tonight is the night you get to explain, to both of us, what exactly you thought you were doing. Her breath caught. Elise opened a sleek folder and slid it across the table. Inside were printed transcripts of text messages, photos, voice recordings, and call logs, neatly organized by date. Everything you've done, I continued. Everything you've said, we know. We've known for weeks. The only thing I want now is the truth. Thomas looked like he wanted to disappear. Samantha's hands trembled. Why here, she whispered. Why publicly? Because you never gave me the courtesy of honesty, I replied. So now, I give you its mirror image. Elise slid another envelope across the table. These are your divorce papers. We're filing first thing Monday. You'll see the custody arrangement proposed and a fair division of property. But, given the adultery, certain assets are no longer up for negotiation. Samantha looked like she might collapse. I was going to tell you, she said, voice barely audible. I didn't mean to. You told him, I snapped. You told him you loved him. You told him you were thinking of leaving. You never told me anything. Thomas stood suddenly. I didn't know she was married at first. She didn't wear a ring. Sit down, Elise said, her voice like steel. He sat. The room fell quiet again. Samantha looked at me. Please, just can we talk? Alone? Why start now? I asked. You had months. You made every decision behind my back. So this is how it ends, with the same kind of control you used to throw away everything we had. Tears welled in her eyes. What about the kids? I'll protect them from this, I said, but I won't lie to them forever. They deserve better than a mother who lies with a smile and disappears behind a second phone. She flinched at that. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to power return to my chest. Elise stood. We'll leave you two for 5 minutes. I suggest you use that time wisely. She walked out, Thomas trailing behind her. I sat. Samantha remained standing. I never meant to fall for him, she said. It just happened. I was lonely. You were always working, always distracted. So you decided to find someone who made you feel young again? I didn't plan it. No one does, I said. But you kept it going. Lied. Hid. Covered your tracks. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. She sat slowly, as if gravity had tripled. Are you going to take them away from me? She asked. No, I said. You're their mother. But I won't let them grow up thinking this is love. I won't let them think betrayal is something you quietly survive. The candles flickered between us. She reached for my hand. I pulled it away. Outside, Elise waited with a quiet nod. It was done. But this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because the next step, the one Samantha didn't know about, was already in motion. And it would be far more public than this room. The morning after the confrontation, Samantha didn't come home. I didn't ask where she went. I woke up alone, sunlight slipping through the curtains, the house unnervingly quiet. The kids were still at her sister's. I'd asked for one more night. Some things to sort through, I'd said vaguely. She didn't press. Maybe she knew. Maybe she didn't want to. I walked through the house slowly, barefoot, coffee mug in hand. Every room felt different. Less like home. More like a stage where something tragic had played out. Her shoes still sat by the door. Her coat still hung in the closet. A perfume bottle leaned slightly on the bathroom counter, the scent of it catching me off guard. I wanted to throw it all in a box. Instead, I sat down and logged into the account Elise had set up. It was time. Revenge, when done right, doesn't need shouting or fists or broken things. It just needs the truth. And timing. We'd chosen a Thursday morning. Midweek. When people are sluggish and looking for something. Anything. To break the monotony. That's when the post went live. A curated slideshow of texts. Photos. Snippets of voice recordings. No nudity. No threats. No profanity. Just evidence. Cold. Undeniable. Devastating. Captioned. When your wife tells you she loves you, but she means someone else. I posted it on a private blog Elise helped me create. No names at first. Just initials. Context clues. Enough for anyone who knew us to recognize the players. Friends. Colleagues. Family. Then, at precisely 10 a.m., Elise clicked the final switch. The post went public. By noon, it was everywhere. Shared. Commented. Screen captured. Dissected. Our social circle is not large, middle class, comfortable, suburban, but it thrives on appearances. Samantha had always been admired. For her poise, her intelligence, her seemingly perfect marriage. I hadn't realized how deep the admiration ran until I saw the reactions. Some didn't believe it at first. Others said they always suspected. A few defended her. But most were stunned. The most damning piece wasn't even the affair itself. It was a recording Elise chose strategically. Samantha, laughing softly, saying, "He's so predictable. I could tell him I'm working late and he'll never ask twice." That line spread like wildfire. The blog received 20,000 hits by 4 p.m. By then, Thomas Rayner's firm had released a statement. He'd been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Samantha's job? A marketing firm that thrived on image and trust. She was asked not to return to the office until further notice. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. She didn't say hello. Why would you do this to me? Her voice cracked, half cry, half rage. You destroyed me. I waited a beat before answering. No, I said, voice even. You destroyed us. I just pulled back the curtain. This is cruel, she whispered. No, I repeated. It's consequences. She hung up. I sat there, staring at the call log. Then I got up, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and stepped onto the back porch. The air was cool. The sky the kind of pale lavender you only see just before dusk. For the first time in weeks, I breathed easily. But the story wasn't over. Because in every war, there's collateral. And this one had names. 2, to be exact. Nora. Ben. I picked them up from her sister's the next day. Samantha had sent a message saying she'd be staying elsewhere for a while. She didn't specify where. I didn't ask. Her sister handed over their bags without a word, though I caught the flicker of something in her eyes. Shame, maybe. Or guilt. The kids were quiet in the car. Nora asked where Mommy was. I told her gently, she's staying somewhere else for now, just for a little while. Is she mad? Nora asked. No, sweetheart. Grown-ups just need time sometimes. Ben, mercifully, was too young to ask. That night, after dinner and bath time and bedtime stories, I sat beside their beds and listened to them breathe. My heart cracked with every exhale. They didn't deserve any of this. No child does. And that's when it hit me. Revenge was never really about her. It was about me reclaiming something. Power, voice, dignity. But now, it had to be about them. So I did something I didn't expect. I called her. She didn't answer. I left a message. I don't forgive you, I said plainly. But the kids don't need to carry this. We'll make a plan. We'll figure it out. Don't make it harder than it has to be. She called back the next morning. Her voice was quieter. Raw. Okay, she said. Thank you. We met at Elise's office later that week to finalize the arrangement. No yelling. No begging. Just signatures. The next few days blurred together. Friends called. Some to offer sympathy. Others to express disbelief. A few asked if I'd take the post down. I didn't. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about preservation. I needed the world to know what happened. Because for the first time in my life, I refused to let someone else control the narrative. Then came the unexpected. An email. From Thomas's ex-wife. Subject line, I saw what you did. I have something you'll want. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a file, photos mostly. Screenshots of conversations between Samantha and Thomas, some older than the ones I'd captured. Details about money transferred. Promises made. Plans to move in together. And one line that stopped my heart. Samantha, he won't see it coming. He's too trusting. Followed by a reply. Thomas, don't worry. Once we get the money out of the joint account, we're gone. Gone. They were planning to leave. Take the money. The kids, maybe. Everything. And I'd caught it just in time. I forwarded it to Elise. Her reply came 10 minutes later. All the leverage we'll ever need. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel relieved. Just hollow. Like a man who'd stood on the edge of something unthinkable and somehow pulled back. But not without scars. That night, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. Really looked. There were lines I hadn't seen before. A tightness around the eyes. A hardness in the jaw. I wasn't the same man who'd overheard a whisper in the living room. I was someone else now. Someone forged in betrayal. Someone waiting for the next move. Because even after all this, I had one more card to play. One final piece. The detail Samantha didn't know I had. A detail that would undo her carefully rehearsed image once and for all. And tomorrow, I'd show it to the world. The day began with a silence so thick, it felt like the sky had dropped a blanket over the world. I woke before the alarm, before the birds, even before the streetlights had faded. The house was dark. Still. The kind of still that used to make me feel safe. Now it only reminded me how far things had fallen. Downstairs, I poured a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand. The final post was already drafted. Scheduled. Just waiting for my approval. One last truth. One final reckoning. This time, with names. Faces. Receipts. It wasn't just about what Samantha had done to me. It was about what she had planned to do. What she would have done if I hadn't stopped her. The bank logs. The quiet withdrawals. The forged signature on a shared account application, trying to get access to an investment portfolio that was never hers to touch. The email I'd received from Thomas's ex-wife had been the key. She'd left him 2 years ago, citing infidelity and financial abuse, and had been watching quietly ever since. She saw Samantha as just another victim, until she saw the post. Then she realized Samantha wasn't a victim. She was a partner, a willing co-conspirator. And the evidence? It was damning. Samantha had planned to drain nearly $40,000 from our accounts, enough to secure a new place, new cars, and what she described in a message as a clean exit. Except it wasn't clean, because I'd caught her mid-step. And now, everyone would know it. I sat there staring at the publish button, finger hovering. Then I looked out the window. The sky was turning blue, the light creeping slowly over the rooftops. Upstairs, I could hear the soft stirrings of the kids waking. The faint creak of Nora's bed, followed by Ben's tiny footsteps padding across the hall. That's when something shifted. I closed the laptop. I didn't press publish, because suddenly, I realized the war was over. And I'd already won. Not because the world knew. Not because Samantha had lost her job or reputation. but because I was free. No more pretending. No more wondering. No more knots in my chest every time the phone rang. She couldn't touch me anymore. And that was enough. Later that morning, I drove to Elise's office with a thumb drive in my pocket. All the final documents ready for review. We finalized the divorce. No drama. No theatrics. Samantha didn't even show. She signed remotely through her new lawyer. Elise glanced at me as we wrapped up. "You don't want to file any criminal charges?" she asked, gesturing to the folder containing the evidence of the attempted financial theft. I shook my head. "No. That chapter's closed." Elise studied me for a beat, then nodded. "You did something most people can't. You took control of your story." "Maybe," I said. "But now I want to write a new one." When I got home, I found a letter on the porch. Handwritten envelope. No return address. I knew the handwriting before I opened it. "Samantha." I sat on the edge of the porch and read. "I never meant to hurt you. I know you won't believe that, but it's true. I was lost, and instead of asking you to help me find my way, I reached for someone else. You didn't deserve that. The things I said, about you, about our life, I don't even know who that version of me was. Maybe I was chasing something that never existed. I see now what I gave up, and what I destroyed. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope one day, you'll remember me for who I was before I broke us. Tell the kids I love them. Always." I folded the letter and set it beside me. There were no tears, no anger, just a strange, quiet peace. Weeks passed. Life began to rebuild itself. Slowly, clumsily. I moved into a new place, smaller, but warmer somehow. The kids adjusted better than I expected. Children are resilient that way. Ben started drawing again. Nora made new friends at her after-school program. We planted a little herb garden together out back. I found myself smiling more, breathing deeper, sleeping through the night. Samantha asked to see the kids on weekends. I agreed, with conditions. Elise helped draw up a custody plan. We stuck to it. Civil, measured, distant. She no longer tried to win me back. I think she knew it was gone. There were whispers in town, sure. People talked. Some pitied me. Others were scandalized. But I didn't care anymore. I'd walked through the fire. I was still standing. One night, about 3 months after it all came to light, I took the kids to a community picnic. Warm evening, fairy lights strung from trees, the smell of grilled food and summer grass. Nora ran off with her friends. Ben clung to my leg until he spotted the face painting table. That's where I met Claire. She was helping volunteer. Painted a tiger on Ben's cheek while making him laugh so hard he nearly spilled his lemonade. Later, we talked over paper plates and folding chairs. She was kind, curious, quietly funny. I didn't tell her everything. Not yet. But I told her I was starting over. And she smiled. "Everyone deserves that," she said. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed it. I still keep the second phone in a box in my closet. Not because I need the proof anymore, but because sometimes I need to remind myself how far I've come. That I didn't just survive it. I rebuilt from it. I'm not the man who heard a whisper and froze. I'm the man who turned betrayal into clarity. And now, when I say, "I love you," one day, when I say it again, it will be to someone who truly means it when they say it back.